Think about the absolute exhaustion you feel right now. Not physical tiredness, but a deep, unexplainable fatigue in your bones. It is the heavy, invisible toll of waking up every single morning and putting on the exact same face. You know the one, the person with your name, your specific history, your collected memories, and all the expectations tied to who you supposedly are. You have been playing this role for so long that you completely forgot it was a performance. Like a brilliant actor who never left the stage after the curtains closed, you have worn a heavy mask for decades, and now the true face beneath it is beginning to suffocate. Right now you believe with absolute certainty that this biography is you. You grip onto your past and your personal narrative as if your survival depends on it. Modern neuroscience and ancient wisdom, however, meet at a beautiful and terrifying crossroad. This current identity you fiercely defend is nothing more than a controlled hallucination. It is an elaborate story your brain keeps repeating to make sense of the world. Every label you accepted, every past regret you carry around like a cross of shame, every defining characteristic you claim to have, it is all part of a rigid script you did not even write. But what if I told you that the crushing weight of being you does not actually belong to you? What if the greatest relief of your existence is hiding in the realization that the person you see in the mirror is just an avatar? You are exhausted because holding a hallucination together takes a massive amount of energetic force. Today, we are going to let that mask shatter. You are going to feel the immense, immediate relief of putting down the burden of being yourself. We're going to find out what actually remains when the character finally steps off the stage. But to dismantle this illusion, we must first look at the very stage where this play is happening, a place you always believed was absolute, solid ground. Look at the room you are in right now. Run your fingers over the texture of the nearest surface. Feel the heavy weight of your own body pressing against the chair, and look at the screen illuminating your face. It all feels so undeniably real, doesn't it? It feels solid, permanent, and completely separate from you. You have been taught to trust these basic physical senses since the very moment you took your first breath. But right here, hidden in plain sight, lies a critical, invisible error in how you observe life. It is a silent mistake you make every single second of every single day, and it is quietly draining your vital energy. You are treating a miraculous, fluid simulation as if it were a rigid, unyielding prison. I will eventually show you exactly how this specific mistake is keeping you trapped in a cycle of exhaustion. But before we can dismantle that trap, you need to understand the shocking truth about what you are actually touching. Consider your brain for a moment. That organ is the sole architect of your entire human experience, yet it sits in absolute pitch-black silence. Locked away inside the thick, dark bone vault of your skull, your brain has never seen the sunlight. It has never felt the wind, and it has never touched a single drop of rain. It has no eyes, no ears, and no hands. It is entirely isolated from the universe you think you are walking through. So how do you experience the vibrant colors of a sunset or the hard edge of a desk? You're essentially wearing organic, virtual reality glasses, the light hitting your eyes, the pressure on your fingertips, the sounds entering your ears. These are merely electrical signals traveling through dark nerve corridors. Once they reach the silent vault of your mind, your brain simply renders the code. It translates a series of chemical sparks into the vivid three-dimensional movie you call your daily life. You're not experiencing the world directly. You are experiencing a delayed, highly edited hologram generated entirely in the darkness of your own head. When you realize that your perception is just a biological rendering, the undeniable solidity of the world begins to tremble. And when you zoom into the very fabric of matter, the illusion completely shatters. Modern quantum physics has proven that if you look closely enough at the atoms making up the wall in front of you, or the very hands holding you in this reality, there is almost nothing there. Matter is 99% empty space. It is a vast, silent vacuum filled with invisible, vibrating energy. The solidity you feel when you knock on a wooden door is not a clash of hard physical objects. It is merely an energetic repulsion, an invisible force field pushing back against the force field of your own atoms. You are walking through a phantom world, an ocean of trembling quantum waves that your brain desperately translates into solid geometry so that you can safely navigate the game. By believing that this three-dimensional environment is a concrete, immovable reality, you have anchored your constructed identity to a physical world that is, scientifically and literally, a mirage. When you perceive the world as rigid, you become a victim of its rigid laws, constantly fighting against walls that are made of empty space. Continuing to observe the world this way is a dangerous loop, a quiet suffering we will soon learn how to completely collapse. But right now, just allow the floor beneath your feet to feel a little less dense. Allow the objects around you to blur into the vibrating energy they truly are. Because if the heavy, concrete world you can physically touch is nothing more than a biological simulation floating in a vacuum, what does that say about the heavy things you cannot touch? If matter itself is a ghost, what is the true nature of the invisible weight you have been carrying inside you all these years? Take a deep breath and notice the physical sensations in your body right this second. Feel the tension resting at the base of your neck, the tightness wrapping around your chest, or that persistent sinking knot in the pit of your stomach. You know this feeling intimately. It is the heavy, dragging anchor of your personal history, your unresolved traumas, and the towering mountain of daily anxieties you carry around. You have always been told that this emotional burden is a permanent part of who you are, a solid block of suffering that you must drag through time. But let us apply the exact same physics we just uncovered about the material world to the landscape of your internal world. If the heavy, solid ground beneath your feet is truly just a vibrating dance of empty space and biological rendering, what does that make the crushing weight of your sadness, your stress, and your fear? Imagine for a moment that you are completely immersed in the most advanced, hyper-realistic, virtual reality simulation ever created. Inside this game, your character is forced to wear a massive, lead-filled backpack. Woven into the heavy fabric of this backpack are all your past failures, your secret terrors, the betrayals you have suffered, and every terrible thing that might happen tomorrow. As you walk through the simulation, you feel the excruciating gravity of this load. Your posture collapses, your breathing becomes shallow, your muscles scream in agony, and you sweat under the unbearable pressure. The pain you feel in your physical body is entirely real. The exhaustion is undeniable. But if you were to pause the simulation, reach your hands behind your back, and try to touch that lead-filled backpack in the absolute truth of the present moment, you would grasp nothing but thin air. The weight you are carrying is a phantom. It is a ghost. That heavy, dense emotional suffering that keeps you staring at the ceiling at 3 in the morning does not actually exist in the physical fabric of reality. It has no mass. It has no molecular structure. It is nothing more than a localized pattern of energy, a specific arrangement of electrical signals in your nervous system that your biological machinery is misinterpreting as a physical boulder. You feel real agonizing pain for a weight that only exists in the software of your constructed identity, not in the pure, spacious essence of who you truly are. This is why you are so deeply, unexplainably exhausted. You have been burning massive amounts of vital life force trying to hold up a phantom structure. You have been flexing your spiritual and emotional muscles to the point of absolute failure, trying to carry a past that has already evaporated and a future that has not yet materialized. But the moment you realize that this burden is just a trick of the internal code, a profound, sweeping relief begins to wash over you. The absolute gravity of your deepest problems suddenly loses its terrifying authority. The perceived flaws, the heavy expectations, the haunting memories, they are all part of the avatar's inventory, bouncing around in a sea of empty quantum space. They are just vibrating data. You can finally let your shoulders drop. You can finally take a full, unrestricted breath, knowing that the agonizing weight was never truly there to begin with. Yet even as this wave of profound relief washes over your nervous system, a persistent mystery remains. If the backpack is an illusion, if the weight of your history is nothing but empty data rendering in the dark, what exactly is forcing you to put that heavy phantom backpack on again every single morning the moment you open your eyes? What is the hidden mechanism keeping this painful software running on a continuous loop, never allowing you to simply rest in the emptiness? Pay very close attention to what is happening inside your head at this exact second. As you hear these words, there is something else happening just beneath the surface of your immediate awareness. There is a silent, formless voice echoing in the dark theater of your mind, actively analyzing what I am saying. It is the voice that just whispered, "What does this mean?" Or, "I already know this." Or perhaps it is drifting off, suddenly worrying about a conversation you need to have tomorrow. You have lived with this internal narrator for so long that you have seamlessly, unquestioningly merged with it. You assume that this voice is you. It is the invisible, uninvited roommate that wakes up the fraction of a second you open your eyes and refuses to shut up until you finally fall into an exhausted, heavy sleep. It dictates your entire day, judges your physical reflection in the mirror, brutally replays mistakes you made a decade ago, and constantly predicts catastrophic futures that do not even exist. Think about the sheer physical exhaustion of never having a single moment of privacy inside your own skull. Notice the subtle, chronic tension locking your jaw right now, the tight grip behind your eyes, the restless, heavy fluttering in your chest. That somatic tension is the physical byproduct of hosting a relentless radio commentator that never takes a commercial break. This invisible invader has convinced you that it is the absolute core of your identity. It speaks in the first person, using the word I, tricking you into believing that every harsh criticism, every paranoid thought, and every heavy judgment is your own absolute truth. It says, "I am not good enough," or "I am going to fail," and you instantly believe that you are the one making that statement. But I want you to step back, become a quiet investigator of your own internal landscape, and observe this entity with cold, surgical precision. If that voice were truly who you are, it would be logically impossible for you to observe it. A knife cannot slice its own blade. A flashlight cannot shine light onto its own bulb. The very fact that you are capable of sitting back in the dark and listening to this voice rambling, complaining, and arguing in your head is the undeniable scientific proof that you are not the one speaking. You are the hostage who simply forgot they were captured. To prove this to you right now, recall a moment in your life when you were completely captivated by something intensely beautiful. Think of a time you were driving down a dark, empty highway late at night, entirely lost in the rhythm of a breathtaking song. Or remember standing before a massive, bleeding sunset where the sheer scale of the sky left you utterly speechless. What happened in that exact fraction of a second? The internal radio commentator was violently unplugged. The relentless narration simply vanished. Your mind went completely, perfectly silent. Now, here is the most important question you will ever ask yourself. When that voice temporarily died, did you cease to exist? Did you disappear into nothingness? Not at all. In fact, in that brief pocket of absolute silence, without a single thought in your head, you felt more alive, more grounded, and more intensely real than you have in years. You continued to exist perfectly without the thinker. The machinery of your body breathed, your awareness expanded outward, and your presence filled the room, all without a single word being spoken in the dark vault of your skull. You are the vast, quiet space in which the voice echoes, not the noise itself. You are the profound silence hiding just behind the chatter. But if you are not this frantic commentator, who gave it the microphone? And more importantly, what happens when this rogue narrator takes a single, mildly uncomfortable event and locks it inside a terrifying, distorted echo chamber? Think about how completely exhausting it is to live inside your own head on a difficult day. I want to deeply validate that profound tiredness you carry in your bones, because what you are dealing with is nothing short of a hostile psychological takeover. Millions of years ago, this internal mechanism was designed as a primitive, life-saving alarm system. Its only job was to scan the wild horizon for immediate physical danger, to spot the predator hidden in the tall grass, and to keep your biological ancestors alive. It was an algorithm built purely for survival. But as the centuries passed and you moved into modern life, that primitive alarm system did not shut off. Instead, it mutated. It evolved from a basic survival instinct into a frantic, panicking movie director, living right behind your eyes, constantly producing high-definition horror films about your daily existence. This terrified director has constructed a massive, dark echo chamber inside your awareness. Think about what happens when a mildly uncomfortable event occurs in your reality. Perhaps someone gives you a strange look, you receive a vague message, or you make a minor financial mistake. In the physical world, the actual event lasted exactly 5 seconds. It came and it evaporated into the vacuum of the past. But the panicking director takes that 5-second clip, locks you in the dark echo chamber, and forcefully presses replay. Over and over again, the event plays out on the screen of your mind. And with every single loop, the narrative becomes more distorted, more exaggerated, and far more catastrophic. The director adds dramatic fear, zooms in on the perceived humiliation, and suddenly, a 5-second interaction morphs into undeniable proof that your entire future is doomed. You do not suffer because of the reality of what actually happened. You suffer because of the relentless, agonizing replay bouncing off the rigid walls of your constructed identity. Notice the brutal physical toll this algorithm takes on your body. Your heart races, your chest tightens, and your stomach ties itself into agonizing knots over catastrophic events that literally only exist in your imagination. Your biological nervous system cannot tell the difference between a real physical threat standing in the room and a vivid, terrifying movie playing in the theater of your mind. It violently pumps adrenaline through your veins so you can fight a ghost. This is precisely why you can sleep for 8 hours and wake up already feeling defeated. This is why a perfectly quiet afternoon sitting on your couch can suddenly feel like a suffocating nightmare. You are burning an astronomical amount of vital energy trying to manage, negotiate with, and soothe a survival algorithm that is entirely out of control. It is an excruciatingly heavy full-time job to simply exist within the crossfire of your own neurotic thoughts. It makes perfect sense that you feel entirely burned out by the human experience. You have spent years of your life trying to debate with this frantic director, trying to logically convince the echo chamber to just quiet down and let you rest. But as you have likely realized in your darkest, most desperate moments, arguing with the voice only gives it more material to use against you. Fighting the anxiety algorithm only feeds it more electrical data. If attempting to control the mind only creates more mental friction, and you cannot physically run away from the theater because it is located inside your own skull, where exactly does that leave you? If every desperate attempt to fix the noise only turns up the volume, what happens when you completely stop trying to fight the director? Imagine a theater. You are standing dead center on a massive, chaotic stage. The spotlights are blindingly bright, burning against your skin. Around you, a frantic play is unfolding. Actors are running in every direction, screaming their lines, throwing props, demanding your immediate reaction. The script you are holding is impossibly heavy, filled with past regrets, future panics, and endless demands. You are sweating, your breathing is shallow, and your heart is hammering against your ribs because you believe, with every fiber of your being, that you are the character in this play. You believe you have to manage the chaos, fix the script, and shout louder than the noise. But right now I invite you to do something radically different. I want you to drop the script. Turn your back to the blinding spotlights, walk to the edge of the stage, and simply step down into the auditorium. Feel the profound physical shift as you leave the wooden floorboards of the stage and walk into the cool, dark, expansive space of the audience. Find a velvet seat in the very back row and sit down. Take a deep, unrestricted breath. Look up at the stage. The chaotic play is still happening. The actors are still running around, the lights are still flashing, the noise is still loud. But you are no longer in it. You are simply watching it. This spatial shift is the most irrefutable, undeniable truth of your existence. Apply this to your internal world right now. When the frantic voice in your head starts screaming about tomorrow's disasters or criticizing your every move, I want you to ask yourself one single paradigm-shattering question. If I can hear this voice criticizing me right now, who exactly is the I that is listening? Let that question echo in the dark auditorium of your awareness. If you can observe the anxious thought, you logically cannot be the anxious thought. You are the vast, quiet space in which the thought is appearing. This single realization is the absolute dismantling of your false identity. You are not the struggling character on stage. You are the silent presence sitting in the dark, watching the performance unfold. There is a massive, infinite distance between you, the calm observer, and the mind, the noisy object being observed. I want you to feel that empty space right now. If you are truly feeling this distance, if you are sitting down in the quiet audience with me right now, I want you to anchor this realization into reality. Write the words, "I am the observer," in the comments below, not for any algorithmic machine, but as a physical, deliberate declaration that you are finally stepping off the stage. And if this sanctuary of thought feels like the home you have been searching for, I invite you to align with this frequency and subscribe to our journey together, because our exploration of this infinite space is only just beginning. Stay in that seat for a moment. Notice how, from the audience, the drama on stage suddenly loses its terrifying gravity. The panic doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the character you left under the lights. You are safe in the dark, wrapped in an unshakable stillness. It feels like absolute freedom. It feels like you have finally cracked the code of your own mind. But a profound danger lurks in this new quiet space, because the frantic director on stage, the ego you just abandoned, is watching you sit in the audience, and it is entirely unwilling to let you rest. In fact, it is already designing a highly sophisticated, invisible trap to pull you right back under the burning lights, disguised as the very enlightenment you think you just found. As you sit quietly in the audience, finally tasting that expansive freedom, something deeply deceptive begins to happen. The frantic director on the stage realizes it has lost your attention. It knows that if you stay in the dark, silent auditorium, its power completely vanishes. So it quickly constructs the most sophisticated, invisible trap of your entire human experience. It is a trap beautifully disguised as healing, or even as a spiritual awakening, heavily promoted by a modern industry of toxic positivity. Suddenly, the relentless voice in your head changes its tone. It puts on a calm, artificial mask and tells you that in order to stay in this peaceful state, you must meticulously control the play. It whispers that you need to aggressively replace every single dark thought with a forced positive affirmation, demanding that you police your own mind. Think about how many times you have blindly fallen into this agonizing cycle. You wake up with a heavy, sinking feeling in your chest, a visceral wave of inexplicable dread. Instead of simply stepping back into the audience, you immediately go to war with yourself. You stand in front of the mirror, gripping the edges of the sink, forcing a tight, unconvincing smile while repeating synthetic affirmations through gritted teeth. I am happy. I am at peace. I attract only good things. But beneath those hollow words, your nervous system is absolutely screaming in panic. Your stomach is tied in agonizing knots, your breathing remains shallow, and you feel a profound, crushing guilt for not being able to simply think positive. You have been sold the terrifying, paralyzing lie that if you do not fiercely suppress your negative emotions, they will somehow destroy your life or permanently ruin your future. This is the ultimate snare of the false awakening. Trying to use the controlling mind to calm down the controlling mind is like trying to extinguish a roaring fire by pouring gasoline over the flames. It triggers a violent internal civil war that guarantees you will remain chronically exhausted. Let us use a brutally clear metaphor. Imagine standing in front of a mirror and noticing a dark, ugly smudge of dirt on your reflection's face. What you have been taught to do is grab a rough cloth and aggressively, frantically scrub the cold glass of the mirror, desperately hoping the dirt will disappear. You scrub until your hands are raw and your arms are entirely fatigued, deeply frustrated that the reflection is not changing. But the mirror is merely a surface. The passing thoughts in your head are just reflections of old, stored energy. You can never, ever change the absolute reality by violently attacking the glass. When you force yourself to be relentlessly positive, you are not actually stepping out of the illusion. You are simply upgrading your constructed identity. You are taking off the heavy mask of the anxious victim and quickly strapping on the shiny, acceptable mask of the perfectly healed, high-vibration person. But make no mistake, it is still just a mask. It is still the exact same ego, now dressed in white, absolutely terrified of losing its grip on the wheel. You are still trapped under the blinding lights of the stage, just playing a slightly different character, who is desperately trying to micromanage the infinite universe. The tight tension in your jaw remains. The exhaustion in your bones actually deepens, because maintaining a fake, perpetually positive persona requires an astronomical depletion of your vital life force. If you sit in the dark and are truly honest with yourself, you know exactly how draining it is to constantly fight your own shadow. You are utterly, completely tired of trying to forcefully rewrite the chaotic script of your own mind. But this creates a terrifying paradox. If going to war with your dark thoughts is a massive trap, and aggressively forcing positive affirmations only tightens the heavy chains of the illusion, where does that actually leave you? When a massive, undeniable wave of sudden panic, deep grief, or heavy anxiety physically crashes into your chest, and you are no longer allowed to fight it, fix it, or suppress it. What exactly are you supposed to do with all that burning fire? When that terrifying wave of sudden panic, deep grief, or heavy anxiety physically crashes into your chest, the absolute truth of what you must do is so radically simple that your analytical mind will immediately try to reject it. You do absolutely nothing. You do not run from it. You do not try to intellectually solve it. You do not force a positive thought over it to suffocate the feeling. You simply sit down in the dark and let the fire burn. Imagine that you are standing inside a warm, dimly lit room, looking out through a massive, thick pane of clear glass. Outside, a violent, raging storm is tearing through the dark landscape. The wind is howling, the freezing rain is lashing against the glass, and the thunder is violently shaking the ground. But inside, standing behind that heavy glass, you are perfectly safe. You are completely untouched by the chaos. You do not open the door to go outside and physically fight the freezing wind. You do not shout into the dark, trying to logically negotiate with the lightning. You simply stand at the window with your hands resting in your pockets, and you watch the storm rage until it naturally exhausts its own fury. Let us apply this exact same mechanics to your physical body right now. The next time you feel that sudden, agonizing knot deeply twist in your stomach, or the heavy, suffocating heat of anxiety flush through your chest, I want you to completely drop all resistance. Stop trying to frantically fix your breathing. Stop trying to mentally command your racing heart to slow down. Bring your entire focus to that uncomfortable, burning physical sensation in your chest or your gut, and silently say to it, "You are entirely allowed to be here. Burn as hot as you need to." Notice what happens to your physical muscles the exact fraction of a second you genuinely surrender the fight. Your heavy shoulders naturally drop. The tight, painful clench in your jaw softens. The exhausting tension running up the back of your neck begins to melt away into the floor. This profound physical relaxation is not defeat. This is the ultimate untouchable power of the neutral observer. You see, an emotion is quite literally just energy in motion. It is a biological, chemical, and electrical wave moving through the complex wiring of your nervous system. Like any wave in nature, it has a very specific, limited lifespan. It rises, it reaches a terrifying peak, and then it naturally dissolves into nothingness. But when you panic about the panic, when you mentally fight the sadness and desperately try to push it away, you are actively pouring pure oxygen onto a fire that was simply trying to burn itself out. The mental friction of your fierce resistance is the only thing keeping the agony alive. Your constructed identity survives entirely on this internal friction. The avatar needs you to constantly fight your own feelings, so it can maintain the heavy illusion that there is a severe problem to be solved and a fragile character that must be aggressively protected. By doing absolutely nothing, by simply letting the intensely uncomfortable energy vibrate and pass through your physical form without interfering, you cut off the oxygen supply to the suffering entirely. The heavy, dark emotion sweeps through your biology like a violent storm cloud passing through a vast empty sky, leaving the sky itself completely and permanently untouched. This passive art of letting the fire burn without trying to put it out is the ultimate relief for your tired, exhausted soul. You no longer need to forcefully micromanage your own humanity, but as this profound internal peace settles deeply into your bones and the internal noise finally quiets down, a massive shift begins to happen to how you perceive the external world. If you can sit perfectly still and allow the most violent internal emotional storms to simply pass through your infinite, empty awareness, what exactly happens to the solid walls you always believed existed between you and the rest of the physical universe? Bring your attention to the physical edges of your body right now. Notice the exact delicate point where your skin meets the air in the room. For your entire life, you have been conditioned to believe that this biological boundary is where you end, and where the cold, vast, and indifferent rest of the universe begins. This specific belief is the birthplace of the most profound, silent agony of the human experience, the chronic, aching sensation of existential loneliness. It is that heavy, hollow feeling you get late at night, staring at the ceiling, utterly convinced that you are a tiny, isolated fragment floating through a chaotic world that does not even know your name. You can walk through a crowded city street, surrounded by thousands of people, and still feel completely invisible, trapped inside the dense walls of your own physical form. You have constructed an identity based entirely on this absolute separation. The very concept of who you are naturally implies that everything else around you is separate, distant, and disconnected. But this terrifying wall of separation you feel so deeply is not a truth of physics. It is a persistent illusion. It is simply a biological blind spot, a limitation of your human eyes and a rigid trap created by language. If we could magically strip away the primitive limitations of your physical senses and look at the space around you through the lens of absolute quantum reality, the illusion of your isolation would dissolve in a fraction of a second. There is no such thing as empty space in the room you are sitting in. The invisible gap between your physical body and the walls around you is completely packed with a dense, vibrating subatomic ocean. The atoms making up the outer layer of your skin are in a constant, beautiful, and invisible exchange with the atoms of the air. You are continuously breathing in the environment, and the environment is continuously breathing you. You are not a rigid, separate object that was simply dropped into an empty container. You are a fluid, localized ripple in a continuous, infinite web of trembling energy. Think about the sheer, undeniable relief of this truth, the crushing weight of your loneliness, the exhaustion that settles deep in your bones, comes directly from the impossible effort of trying to survive as a disconnected fragment. You spend so much energy defending your borders, protecting your feelings, and trying to bridge the imaginary gap between you and the rest of the world. But the boundary you are so fiercely defending does not even exist. You are physically, chemically, and energetically woven into the very fabric of the cosmos. The oxygen traveling through your bloodstream right now was exhaled by ancient, silent forests. The iron coursing through your veins was forged in the absolute heat of dying stars billions of years ago. You cannot possibly be separated from the universe because you are the universe, momentarily expressing itself as a human being sitting in that exact chair, listening to these words. Feel the profound stillness of the room around you right now, not as an empty, lonely void, but as a silent, intelligent presence that is holding you completely. Let your shoulders drop as you realize you do not have to hold yourself together anymore. You are supported by the invisible web of everything that is. You have never, not for a single fraction of a second in your entire life, been truly alone. But as you let this massive realization wash over your tired nervous system, allowing the heavy walls of your isolation to gently collapse into peace, a deeply ingrained human habit will often try to pull you back into the struggle. Just as you begin to rest in this perfect, unbroken connection, a quiet voice might whisper that simply existing in this peace is not allowed, convincing you that there is still something fundamentally broken inside you that must be forcefully corrected. Notice the profound, quiet fatigue hidden beneath your noble desire to improve yourself. Feel the heavy, sagging weight in your chest that comes from constantly scanning your own mind and body for flaws. You have spent years, perhaps decades, running on the exhausting hamster wheel of personal and spiritual development. You read the books, you attempt the complex meditations, you fiercely monitor your energetic frequency, always trying to elevate yourself, always trying to heal. But beneath all of this relentless effort lies a dark, silent agony, the crushing, unspoken conviction that you are fundamentally broken. Every time you frantically consume another method to fix yourself, you are unknowingly sending a powerful, devastating command to your nervous system. You are validating the very trauma you are trying to escape. You are screaming into the quiet void of your awareness that your current identity is flawed, damaged, and entirely unacceptable. Imagine standing over a small natural pool of water, that has become filled with floating silt and dark mud. Your immediate instinct, driven by the desperate need to make the water pure and clear, is to plunge your hands in and violently scrub the dirt away. You agitate the water, you spin it, you forcefully try to push the mud to the bottom. But what actually happens? The more violently you intervene, the darker and more chaotic the water becomes. The turbulence of your own frantic effort is the exact mechanism keeping the water murky. This is the ultimate paradox of your healing journey. The aggressive, relentless pursuit to fix your internal world is the very friction that keeps your soul feeling so restless and exhausted. You cannot forcefully command the dirt to settle. The only physical way the water becomes crystal clear again is if you withdraw your hands, step back, and simply leave it completely alone. I want you to feel a deep, radical wave of compassion washing over your tired shoulders right now. You do not need to be fixed, because the pure, expansive awareness that you truly are has never been broken. The traumas, the jagged edges, the perceived character flaws, they belong to the avatar. They are just passing patterns in the water. But you have taken on the agonizing full-time job of trying to perfect a temporary biological vehicle. Drop that unbearable burden right here, in this exact second. Give yourself the absolute unconditional permission to stop evolving for a moment. Feel the profound relief of stepping off the battlefield of spiritual growth. You do not have to forcefully raise your vibration today. You do not have to perform emotional surgery on your own psyche. You are allowed to simply exist, messy and unresolved, within the vast perfection of the quiet observer. The true healing you have been desperately chasing for years is not a destination you reach through brutal effort. It is the natural, effortless clarity that arises the moment you finally stop agitating the water. Yet, the moment you attempt to put your hands in your pockets and let the water settle, a new sharp panic often strikes the chest. The mind screams that you cannot afford to sit still, that you cannot simply rest in this unfinished state, because there is a terrifying, invisible shadow looming over you. The ego convinces you that if you stop frantically striving to perfect your character, you will be swallowed by an ultimate, unavoidable threat that haunts every single human being. What is this phantom pressure that makes resting feel like a fatal mistake? That invisible shadow looming over you, the sharp panic that strikes the exact moment you try to finally sit still, is the relentless, artificial pressure of time. It is a phantom stopwatch ticking loudly in the dark theater of your mind. Notice how it feels physically. The second you decide to put your hands in your pockets and surrender the exhausting need to fix yourself, a subtle, highly uncomfortable vibration starts deep within your chest. Your breathing becomes slightly shallow. A heavy, familiar guilt wraps tightly around your throat, whispering that resting is a fatal mistake, a dangerous luxury you simply cannot afford. It tells you that you are falling behind, that it is getting dangerously late, and that the sand in the hourglass is slipping away much faster than you can possibly manage. You have lived your entire human experience sprinting down a long, narrow corridor filled with millions of ticking clocks, constantly running toward a glowing, ever-receding exit sign called the future. Your constructed identity feeds entirely on this exact panic. It is completely dependent on the heavy illusion of a linear timeline. The ego cannot survive in the absolute silent stillness of the present moment, because in the true now, there are no complex problems to solve, no past to deeply regret, and no future to desperately fear. To keep itself alive and in control, your false self must constantly project a terrifying, urgent future that requires your immediate, exhausting attention. It convinces you that if you stop running, if you stop striving and worrying, the heavy walls of that corridor will violently collapse and swallow you whole. It forces you to believe that your worth, your safety, and your very existence are deeply tied to how fast you can race against an invisible clock. This is the profound, silent agony of the modern soul, the chronic, bone-deep sensation of being perpetually out of time. You wake up in the morning already feeling incredibly late for a destination that does not even exist. But I want you to look very closely at this phantom pressure. The universe, in its infinite, vibrating quantum expanse, does not operate on a deadline. The stars do not rush to burn, and the vast oceans do not hurry their ancient tides. Only the human mind has built a suffocating cage out of seconds, minutes, and years. The crushing weight you feel on your shoulders is not the actual passing of time. It is the immense, burning friction of your mind, desperately trying to live in a future that has not happened, while violently resisting the only reality that actually exists, this exact, quiet, unbroken fraction of a second. Think about the sheer undeniable freedom of dropping this final burden. The next time you feel that agonizing rush of urgency pull tight at your muscles, simply observe it. Recognize it as the desperate, dying trick of a character that is terrified of the stillness. You do not have to obey the ticking clock. You are entirely allowed to step off the track. The guilt you feel when you genuinely rest is not a sign that you are failing. It is simply the dying echo of an old, heavy program losing its grip on your nervous system. Imagine stopping dead in your tracks in the middle of that dark corridor and realizing that the loud, intimidating clocks on the walls have no hands. The urgency was a ghost all along. There is absolutely nowhere you need to be and nothing you are running out of. But as you finally allow this profound stillness to anchor you perfectly in the present moment, and as the deafening noise of the future completely fades into silence, a massive, silent door begins to open within the center of your awareness. If you are no longer bound by the heavy chains of time, and you are no longer trapped inside a fragile biological mask, what exactly happens when you finally look out into the blank, infinite canvas of reality and realize the staggering extent of what you can actually create? As that massive silent door opens in the center of your awareness, the final absolute shift in your perception must take place. It is an inversion so profound that it will permanently alter how you walk through the physical world. For your entire life, you have been sitting in a dark, incredibly immersive movie theater. You have been staring at the massive screen, completely captivated by the flashing colors, the deafening surround sound, and the chaotic, dramatic storyline unfolding before you. You have been gripping the armrests, your knuckles white, your heart pounding violently in your chest during the terrifying scenes, and sobbing quietly during the tragic ones. You have been entirely convinced that the character on that screen, the one struggling, failing, and desperately fighting for survival, is who you actually are. This localized character, with all its specific historical luggage and complex traits, is the exact identity you have been fiercely defending. When the movie gets unbearably painful, when the projected character loses everything or faces insurmountable odds, you feel the crushing, suffocating weight of it in your actual physical chest. Your throat tightens. Your stomach drops into a cold, bottomless pit. You want to jump out of your seat, run up to the front, and somehow rip the fabric of the screen to change the terrible script. You spend all your biological energy trying to mentally manipulate the light and shadow being cast from a projector far behind you, absolutely terrified of what the next scene will bring. The exhaustion you feel in your bones right now, that heavy, dragging fatigue that never seems to go away even after a full night of sleep, comes from this exact, impossible effort. You are constantly, desperately trying to fight a pre-recorded projection. But what if I told you to take a deep, slow breath, loosen your desperate grip on the armrests, and completely shift your focus? Stop looking at the violent, chaotic shapes of light and shadow dancing in the foreground. Look deeper. Look past the drama, past the explosion, past the tragic weeping of the main character. What is holding the image? It is the screen, a vast, silent, completely empty white screen. Notice the absolute majesty of its indifference. When a roaring, destructive fire is projected onto it, the screen does not burn. The fabric does not get hot. When a devastating torrential flood sweeps through the storyline, the screen does not get wet. When the movie ends, the screen is not diminished, scarred, or altered in any way whatsoever. It remains exactly as it has always been, pristine, untouched, and infinitely capable of holding whatever reality is cast upon it. This is the absolute inversion of your existence. You are not the struggling, exhausted character, desperately trying to survive the chaotic plot of your daily life. You are the screen. You are the vast, infinite, silent field of pure awareness upon which the entire movie of human experience is playing out. Every thought, every physical sensation, every dramatic event in the external world is just a temporary projection of light and shadow dancing across your infinite surface. Let that staggering truth sink into your very biology. Feel the profound, immediate relief sweeping through your nervous system. You do not have to fight the movie anymore. You do not have to forcefully fix the plot. The fire cannot burn you. The water cannot drown you. You are the eternal, untouched canvas of reality itself, silently holding the entire universe without breaking a sweat. Yet, if you are the infinite, untouched screen, completely impervious to the chaotic drama playing out upon you, a staggering question naturally arises from this profound silence. If you are just the canvas, who or what is actually running the projector? The profound answer to who is running the projector is the ultimate key to escaping the matrix of your own suffering. There is no distant, separate operator hiding in the dark booth of the universe. You are the screen, but you are also the pure, unconditioned light of the projector itself. The invisible, staggering intelligence of the cosmos is breathing through you, using your highly specific, unique perspective to simply experience its own infinite creation. To actually escape the illusion is not to physically run away from your daily life, nor is it to violently destroy your human avatar. It is simply to completely drop the heavy, agonizing belief in a fragmented, isolated identity. You step out of the matrix the exact fraction of a second, you stop trying to desperately control the movie, and finally allow the absolute perfection of the silent observer to quietly take the wheel. You are completely free, and the brilliant truth is you always have been. If you have walked this long, quiet corridor with me and you are finally ready to step out of the heavy theater of the mind, I want you to permanently anchor your new frequency right now. Down in the comments, write the exact words, "I am the pure light." This is our physical, energetic signature that you have completely shifted your timeline and stayed with me until the very end. If this deep dive brought genuine, undeniable relief to your tired soul, and you want to continue expanding your infinite awareness with more content like this, simply click on one of the videos appearing on your screen right now. And if you wish to directly support this space and unlock exclusive, deeper layers of our cosmic exploration, please consider becoming a channel member today. Your presence here is the universe finally waking up to itself. Rest now in that profound, unbroken peace.